Today, inside the property crisis. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics, World Latest Post covering finance and property news. Today, I'm joined by John Wright, who's an Associate Professor at the University of Technology. And John has written a masterpiece on the property crisis and what's caused it. John, welcome.
Oh, thanks, Martin. I don't know about a masterpiece. It's something to put on the CV to prove that I've been doing something over the past couple of years, but I don't know whether it's a masterpiece.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a very, very interesting piece of work. And, it touches a lot of the issues that I've been banging on about for 25 years, relating
Mm,
specifically to how come we've got into this property crisis mess that we have,
mm,
who's to blame, but
mm,
more
mm,
importantly, what is the way out of this? What are the policy levers that we should be thinking about pulling? And I want to get on some of that. But
mm.
just introduce yourself first, John, because I know you've been doing some work in the UK, then you come back to Australia. So just give us
Yeah,
the very
yeah,
quick potted history.
yeah. So I'm basically an academic. I couldn't get a job after I finished my PhD. I couldn't get a job. It was very hard to get work, and I was tutoring, for $50 a class at Melbourne. So I left. I left for the UK in 2002, and I didn't really come back until about 2018. But now I'm back. I had a brief stint at the ANU in the early 40s, but I do sort of well, it's hard to describe what I do. Lots of different things. I do political theory, political philosophy, but I have policy chops. So I can do public policy and regulatory governance. You have to. It's very hard to get on in academia these days. So you have to be able to do a wide variety of things. So now I'm back at UTS, and I started writing about policy change, and I teach a public policy master's course at UTS, and I supervise PhD students and so on and so forth. So
Excellent.
that's me.
Yeah, great. Well, and good work. And I think the intersection of public policy with housing is a critical
Mm.
issue. My
Yes.
thesis has been for a long time that a lot of the problems we've got in the housing uh, issue is actually down to bad government policy over 40 years plus. And it's not just a
Yes.
happenstance, it's almost a
Mm.
deliberate set. And so, we'll perhaps towards the end come to the question as to whether the
Yes.
policy failures were deliberate or whether they were accidental.
Yes.
But
Yes.
let's start with the housing question. What why did you start this particular project? What was the trigger for it?
Okay, so the trigger for it was, long story short, I was in the UK for the referendum in 2016, and I didn't really pay very much attention to it. I generally didn't comment on British politics at all, let the British sort out their own sort of messes. And it crept up on me. I didn't understand. Well, no one thought that Brexit would happen. No one believed, not even Nigel Farage. I think on the night of the referendum, he said, I think Remain might have edged it, but it happened, and I couldn't understand it. I thought, Why did this happen? This is really weird. So I thought I'm supposed to be doing public policy, and I don't understand policy change. So I better look into this. So I started reading about. So why did this change occur? And so I stomped around London for a while, wondering about this question. Then I came back to Sydney. I had HEX debts to pay off, and the pound sank against the Aussie, so I had to get out. And I came back and I started teaching public policy at UTS. And as part of the course, students have to do like a mini thesis, in which so they choose their own topic. And all the students wanted to do two topics: housing affordability and the lockout laws. That I marked so many theses on both of those topics. And so the housing affordability one I knew a bit about. Uh, uh, and my reaction to it was, oh, because the conclusion of these theses was always, well, we've got to change capital gains tax and negative gearing. And my reaction to that was, someone told me how that worked back in 2002, right before I left, and I thought that sounds pretty crazy. I bet they changed that. And so my reaction to it was, oh, I thought they'd have changed that by now, but they hadn't. Then I started to think, well, it's the same question, isn't it? So why did Britain leaving the European Union, a policy change that you would not have expected to occur, that occurred, and then a policy change that you would have expected to occur, retiring capital gains and negative gearing. Why didn't that occur? So it's kind of the same question. So you should have, can we have a sort of a, I don't like to say model, but can we have a grammar, a sort of an analytical grammar where we can understand or describe the leaving of the European Union and the failure to change capital gains and negative gearing with the same grammar? And we can. So that's the message of the book. So there's two books. There's one on Britain leaving the European Union, the other one on negative gearing capital gains, and they're the same book. They're exactly the same. If you can go through the chapters, and they're all organized the same. You can use the same grammar to describe both changes. So it naturally leads to a question of, well, what is policy change, and how does it occur, and how can we analyze it? And that's kind of what the books are about. The second one, which will interest your viewers, maybe, is why didn't this change occur? Why is it still? Why am I having to mark all these essays about housing affordability when I thought it would change years ago? So it comes out of me deciding that I'm supposed to be this lecturer in public policy, and I don't understand the basics. Why policy change? So I kind of thought, well, I better look into this question. So I thought I'd start, because this is the first time I've ever spoken about it. So you've got to keep me in line, Martin, because I tend to bang on about things. So yeah, feel free to interrupt me. So what is policy change? Now, another channel that I watched over the years was this guy, Biko Konstantinos. He's very funny. He always starts with a joke. So I thought, well, I'm on YouTube, so we might have a little bit of a joke, but it's not really a joke. It's policy change. So so Biko starts with a joke, and it's always kind of a lame joke, but it's kind of funny. So what do Marie Antoinette, a lump of coal, and the Kingdom of Great Britain all have in common? That's kind of, Biko would make a joke out of that. But for me, this is the secret to policy change. So Marie Antoinette, a lump of coal, and the Kingdom of Great Britain, they're all policy objects. They're all relevant to certain policy changes. So let's focus on I'll get to the end of this. So before your viewers switch off, the lump of coal. What do I mean by that? So Scott Morrison brings a lump of coal into the Parliament, and he lays it out before the House of Reps, and he says, "Don't be afraid. This is coal." Well, it's not really telling us very much, is it? Because so coal has, and all these objects, Marie Antoinette, lump of coal, Great Britain, they all have properties and characteristics that exist sort of independently of any sort of structure of social or political relations. So coal is, I think it's like number 6 on the periodic table. It's sort of dark and heavy, and it's in the ground, and you have to dig it up. So properties and characteristics. And you can burn it. It burns really well. But when it comes into the Parliament and you want to start making policy, you have to give coal meaning and identity. You have to tell me what it is and what does it mean, and then I'll know what to do with it. So it's not good enough for Morrison to come in and say, this is coal. The next question is, well, okay, that's great, Mr. Morrison. But is that lump of coal, is that a cheap source of energy? Or is that an environmental pollutant? That's the question. So you have to give this lump of coal meaning and identity, and then I know what to do with it. Oh, it's a cheap source of energy. Well, let's just send it down to the furnace and burn it. Oh, it's an environmental pollutant. Oh, well, we better not use it then. We better find something else. So when you it's the same question for Brexit. Kingdom of Great Britain. Martin, this is your neighbourhood. So, we can close our eyes and we think of the map of Great Britain, the British Isles, et cetera, four kingdoms. Now, it has properties and characteristics. It has about 70 million people. It has a financial services industry concentrated in London. It has, nice hills and lovely country. So all these properties and characteristics that exist independently. But the question of whether or not Britain stays in the European Union is, what is this? Is this a member of a European Union member state? Or is this an independent sovereign state off the continental mainland? Once we establish its meaning and identity, then we know what to do with it. Everything is like this. Everything. So even Marie Antoinette, I don't know if you remember my favorite part of the Olympics, and I go on about this all the time. The opening ceremonies with Gojira, the French heavy metal rock band. It was amazing. So it starts off. I don't know if you remember this. There's a red figure in. We're looking at La Concierge, the building on the Seine, where I'm trying to set the scene here. La Concierge on the Seine, and in the windows is this headless woman in a red dress, and she's holding her head around her waist, and the head starts to sing. And of course, it's Marie Antoinette. So she was held in La Concierge in the final days before she was executed. So the question of the question of the French Revolution can become this: who is that woman? Is that Marie Antoinette, Queen of France, Princess of the House of Habsburg? Or is that Marie Antoinette, enemy of the revolution, threat to public safety? Once you decide who she is, once you give her meaning and identity, you know what to do with her. And that's the secret to policy change. Now, that's as abstract as I will get in this little talk. Now, there is a point before your listeners turn off. There is a point to that, which I will come back to. So now feel free to stop me, Martin, because I do bang on.
Well, let me just come in because I'm a philosopher by training myself, right? So
right.
I did philosophy at Oxford. So I'm very interested in the meaning of words and the meanings of things and the symbolism that they represent.
Yeah.
Right. And what you've been talking about here is actually meaning and symbolism, right? So what does something actually connote to you, right? And I apply that thinking specifically, of course, to property, right? Because property in Australia has become iconic. It's the houses and holes story of Australia.
Yes.
It is ultimately the cornerstone of the economy, right? It has become the political touchstone. It's become the thing that everybody talks about at barbecues.
Exactly.
It's become the most essential, critical thing at the same time as becoming more out of reach for more Australians. At the same time as it sucks more and more of the economic activity of Australia into oblivion and basically creates a bigger and bigger economic and political headache for politicians. And everybody seems to be losers other than the banks who seem to love it. So from a symbolic perspective, the question I've always asked is, well, what is this property story really about?
Well, that's a good question. Just as an aside, what sort of philosophy did you study at Oxford? I'm imagining analytical.
It was philosophy of language. So,
okay.
Just as a slight aside, right?
Yeah.
When I say elephant, you know what an elephant is, right? But why do you know what an elephant is, right? There is a set of intrinsic understandings and values and descriptors that you've learnt so that you can associate elephant, the word, with elephant, the elephant, right?
Interesting.
But what would happen if in another country, elephant meant table? Well, when you said elephant, you were talking about an animal, but they might be thinking you were talking about a table. So you'd actually communicate but not communicate. And it comes back to the meaning of language. How does language get meaning? And are we in danger sometimes of using language in ways that mean we're not actually communicating at all? And I would argue that some of the housing debacle is this same problem. It's about not understanding the basic assumption. So, in other words, your worldview and my worldview might be quite different. And so it's
mm,
important to understand what assumptions we're making about the way things
mm,
work. And in a property
mm,
context, why
mm.
why is property behaving the way it is, and what does it mean? So that's some of the stuff that I get involved in.
Very interesting. You and I could sort of bang on about this for a long time, and all your viewers would turn off. And
Well, we might have
so,
a separate philosophical fest sometime or the other.
yes,
I'm a
yes,
great believer in helping people to sort of stand back and look at things. And philosophy, of course,
mm,
also makes you ask the why question all the time, right? And the
no, it
why
does. Yeah,
and the
yeah.
why question in the context of property is the critical
Mm,
question to ask. Why did we get to where we got to, right? And
mm,
you look back through history and you can think of the gold rush, the railway rush, the tulip
yeah.
mania. Housing is in the same
Mm.
bucket, it seems to me.
It is. It is. It is. Let's. I'll bring us back to this is your channel, but allow me to bring us back to property, so that your viewers don't turn off. Um, that's everything you. I agree with everything you've said. Uh, so we're at the importance of understanding what the meaning and identity of policy objects is, whether it's Great Britain, whether it's coal, whether it's Marie Antoinette. Once we understand their meaning and identity, we know what to do with them. Whether it's don't burn it, put it in the furnace, whether it's take it out of the European Union or whether it's off with her head, meaning and identity. So let's get back to that's the grammar of policy change that I use. So now let's look at the context, which is why your viewers are here, Australian real estate. So it didn't change, and this piqued my interest. Why am I reading so many essays on housing affordability? Surely they would have changed this by now. So the question you have to start with is if you why does John so why John expects the negative gearing and capital gains tax to have changed? Why would you expect it to change, John? It's uh, why are you so surprised that it's still here? So you have to have an answer to why you would think it would change. And that answer is what really kicks off the analysis. So my answer is it should have changed. I would have expected it to change because it's a carry trade, because Australian real estate has become a carry trade. Um, and then the question is, well, what do I mean by that? And this is kind of where it becomes. As I sort of got more into this, I thought, oh, this is you might be onto something here. So I start off by one of the reasons I would have expected it to change was because the Reserve Bank and the Productivity Commission and all those outfits during the noughties were always saying you've got to change these policies. I mean, this is going to put a rocket under house prices, and people are going to borrow boatloads of money, and it could all end, horribly. So that's one reason, because the Reserve Bank said so, and the Productivity Commission did as well, and all the rest of them. But the other one is because it's a carry trade. So, what's a carry trade? Well, now I wrote this because I have these little statements. So I wrote this down so that it's from the book. Now, I'm not the expert on carry trades. The experts on carry trade are at Berkeley. They are the Haas Business School. Kevin Coldiron and Tim Lee. They wrote a brilliant book called The Rise of Carry. And I read it and started talking to them, and I thought this is really really good stuff. So a carry trade is a leveraged investment in an asset class that yields a higher rate of return than the cost of the leverage. It's a naturally occurring feature of any capitalist economy. Carry trades exist all over the shop, and they can target all sorts of different asset classes. There's nothing, they're natural. There's nothing really that wrong with carry. But Australia has made a unique contribution to the history of carry trades. So, what's a carry trade? Well, a carry trade functions on carry, spread, leverage, and volatility. Now, I'll give some examples, just some sort of thought experiments or thought examples. So let's go, and I choose the ancient world because carry trades are a naturally occurring feature of any sort of economy. So let's go back to the ancient world. Let's think about the ancient Mediterranean. And we have Rome on one side, and we have Alexandria, Thebes, or Cairo on the other side. Now in Cairo they grow grain and in the Nile Delta, and they're really really good at it. It's very fertile, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they can grow lots and lots of it. In Rome, we're the capital of the ancient world, and we've got lots of mouths to feed, a growing population, et cetera, et cetera. So I become so think of me as an enterprising Greek, a Greek entrepreneur, a pectus, a player, and I think, oh, here's an opportunity for me. I'll go to the Roman treasury and I'll borrow a whole lot of sesterces of Caesar. I'll go to Thebes. I'll buy all the grain they will sell me because I can get it cheap there. I can get it for, say, 100 sesterces. Then I load it onto triremes and I carry it across the Mediterranean and I sell it in Rome for, say, like 500 sesterces. So my carry is the spread. So the spread is 100 sesterces in Egypt, 500 sesterces in Rome. So my spread, that's my spread. My carry is the 400 minus the cost of the leverage and the cost of transport, grain carry. Now, what I do is I do that over and 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 over. And that's what a carry trade is. People call it picking up pennies in front of a steamroller, and they deliver exceptional returns, carry trades. Now, another example that I use, Lehman Brothers, you know, the famous bank that went bust. Those guys, they started as cotton carry traders. So they were originally tailors from Germany, and they moved to Alabama. And the plan was that they were going to make clothes for the plantation owners, you know, fancy clothes and all that. But they couldn't make enough money. So they they became carry traders. So they made friends with all the plantations in Alabama, and they said to them, and they borrowed a whole lot of money, and they said, look, we know that it's tough growing cotton, and you could have a harvest that gets burned, and you could lose all your money. We will guarantee you a price of we're going to buy everything your plantation could grow for 100 US dollars. And then they load all this cotton from all the plantations up onto drays, and they carry them to New York because they're tailors. They know the cotton exchange, the people who run the cotton exchange in New York, and they sell it there for say 500, and it's the same. So they're 100 from the slave labor, of course, very cheap cotton, and you can sell it to the northern states. That's your carry. So it functions on, again, the spread, how much it costs to grow the cotton, how much it costs to how much you can sell it for, and the cost of transport and the cost of leverage, and that's your carry. The one that you've probably heard of, the one that's common in our world, and this is the one that concerns Tim and Kevin, the guys from Berkeley. I really encourage you to read their books. The yen carry trade. So the yen carry trade's the same thing, but it targets currency, right? So what you do is, I'm a hedge fund. I go to Tokyo. I say, I'll borrow all the yen I can afford, and then I carry it across the Pacific, and I throw it at the Mag 7. And so I might get 5% return for Tesla or whatever. I could throw it at stocks where I'm going to get 5%. And I've only borrowed it at 1%. So it's like the same thing again. You borrow money, and you get a return. And you do it over and over and over and over and over again. So you're picking up pennies in front of a steamroller. So that's Australian real estate carry is kind of different, but it's the same. So functions on carry, spread, leverage, and volatility. Now, this is the crucial thing. Carry, this is Tim and Kevin argue that carry is short volatility. But you're selling volatility if you're a carry trader. You're saying that nothing much is going to change. So my bet as the Greek pectus doing grain carry is that Mediterranean is going to stay free of pirates. We're going to continue to have a growing population in Rome, and it's always going to be cheap here in Egypt. Short volatility. And I'll stop banging on about this after the Lehman Brothers thing. So Lehman, the carry trade blew up. So Lehman became a bank. They stopped being cotton carry traders uh, when the carry trade blew up. So they were doing this in about early 1860s. And what happens in 1863? Volatility explodes. Oh, there's a civil war. Guess what? Slave labor is not good, and you can't do this anymore. So the carry trade just disappears. It stops. Now we don't know what's going to happen with the yen carry trade, but there's always panic that what happens if the yen carry trade unwinds? That's a problem. But that's not the one we're talking about today. So what I argue is that Australian real estate carry is different, and it's kind of alarming actually. Um, so all those other carry trades that I've described are naturally occurring features of capitalist economies. A Greek pactus sees an opportunity. Oh, I'll sell, grain. I'll do some cotton carry. Um, uh, yeah. Oh, gosh, I'll take advantage of the cheap yen. Australian real estate carry is different to that. So my argument is the capital gains tax and capital gains tax discount and negative gearing, when you put them together, they operationalize a carry trade. So and it works the same way. So in the same way that, so let's just focus on the ancient world. So in the same way that the Greek grain carry trader decides, I'm going to buy cheap grain and sell it in Rome. So under negative gearing, you can write down losses that you might incur on renting out a house that you can't cover the cost of your leverage. So you have to borrow. It's not a carry trade if you don't borrow. So it puts a floor under the cost of your cost of leverage, and it allows you to buy a wide range of properties. So you buy it, and then you carry it to the rental market. All right. And then you rent it out. You collect your carry, your reduced income tax, and you get more, take home pay, and then you hold on to it for a year in anticipation of heavily discounted capital gains. That's your carry. So it's a real estate carry trade. It's the same. It functions the same way as all these other carry trades, but it's better. It's the greatest of all time carry trade. The goat of Western capitalism, I argue, because of what it targets. So it targets real estate. It doesn't target grain. It targets real estate. Now, real estate, it, it has the characteristics of a commodity, but it's also an asset. So, in the same way that the ancient Egyptians needed grain to eat, to fill their bellies and feed their families, it's a commodity. So grain's a commodity is what I'm saying. So grain's the same everywhere, whether it's grown in New South Wales or whether it's grown in, ancient Egypt. It's the same. Same with coffee. It's a commodity. But so houses are kind of a commodity as well. I mean, people need them. So in the same way that the ancient Egyptians need grain, the average Australians need a house. We need somewhere to live to keep us off the streets. So it's a commodity. So you need it. People are going to buy it. But it's also an asset. Real estate's also an asset. So assets differ from one type to the other. So you can have a house that's got 2 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms, or 4-car garage, 2-car garage. So it's an asset. So it's a quasi commodity, quasi asset. So you can rely upon people to buy it, and you can sit on it in expectations of capital gains. So the carry on this particular strange quasi commodity, quasi asset is much better than grain carry. It's the greatest of all time carry trade, and it's different to these other ones because all those other ones I've described, they've been a Greek practice taking an opportunity. This is not a market-based opportunity. This is government policy. If you take away negative gearing, you take away the capital gains tax discount, you lose carry and spread. Your carry trade unwinds. It doesn't exist without these two policies, if you see what I mean. So that's that's the sort of that's why it should have changed. Um, and that's basically uh, that's a small part of the argument. So my interest in this is what holds this together. So this is now. I suppose I should go on to. Um, Now you have to stop me, Martin, because I do bang on. Um, so why is this bad? Why is it even bad?
Well,
Okay, let's do that.
let me just come in, because
Yeah,
what you've actually highlighted is the thing that
yeah,
I have been saying for a long, long time, that the
yes,
way that the policy settings were put in place over a period of time was a
yes,
deliberate set of intentions, right? So this is not
yes,
a happenstance. This isn't an accident. This isn't just, oh, things happen, right? There was a set
mm,
of decisions that were taken in a political
mm,
sphere, and I'd go right back to the deregulation of the financial system, which allowed effectively much more borrowing into the finance sector. But then the negative
yes,
gearing and the capital gains changes that were made to bolster it. And of course,
mm,
also the very significant policy settings that said, well, the government should get out of housing, so we'll encourage private citizens to effectively invest in housing to then provide residential property for renters as well. I mean, those are all quite deliberate things. Oh, and then actually you need to feed this monster on a continuing
mm,
basis, which means you need
mm,
more policies like first-time buyer grants, to bring more people in, to keep the momentum and keep the
yes,
flywheel going. Oh,
mhm,
we need to
mhm,
keep
mhm,
migration up because migration helps to feed the machine as well. So we end
mm,
up with a perpetual motion machine, but it
mm,
relies on this carry trade still being there. And if you were to take it away,
yes,
everything
yes.
collapses.
That's right, and that's an alarming. That's so. When I first started going to, I thought, gosh, this is quite frightening. Um, so if you to digress, now my expertise, you do. I'm surprised you did philosophy. I thought you were banking and finance guy. So I had a whole lot of questions I was going to ask you. Um, but
I understand banking and finance too, but there's a bit more
Yeah,
to
yeah,
what I do, right? Yeah.
yeah. Okay, okay. Can you permit me to disagree with you
Of course.
on one? Or, Now I say this. I hate to disagree with people. I usually just agree with everybody. Oh,
No, debate is
it's right.
good.
Yeah,
Debate
yeah,
is good. The point is that by debating things,
yeah.
we all learn. So that's great.
That's true. That's true. It's an accident. I think it's an accident. I don't think there's any cruel mastermind behind this. I think, and this is not just me banging on again. Uh, I think I can prove this. Uh, it's an accident. No one thinks it's going to happen. It goes right back to 1985 when Hawke and Keating very sensibly eliminate these tax advantages, illegal tax shelters, they call them. Now, it hasn't really taken effect there because if you remember, carry trades rely on leverage. The carry trade only operates if you've got access to leverage. So they only deregulated the banking system in 1984. So you can't have proper leverage. You can't really maximize the carry trade until you can borrow boatloads of money. So all these people who bang on about negative gearing, it's been here since 1911. No, you don't know what you're talking about. It's reconstituted after 85 and again in 99. It's only when you put them together and you give leverage. Until you deregulate the banks, it won't function in the same way. And nobody in the parliament actually understands this. So not even the real estate lobby understood this in 85. All they wanted, and look, I don't want to sort of get distracted by talking about those guys at the moment. Uh, they don't expect to win. So when they launch their campaign and say, there's a massive housing crisis in Sydney, and you caused it, federal Labor, it's your problem. No one thought that they were going to win that. The only ones that believed that that they had a shot was the Real Estate Institute of New South Wales. And you can find this in their annual reports and in the Sydney papers and so forth. It's them. They lead this course, and they actually win. They lead this resistance against Hawke, and they win a public relations award for it afterwards. And then they radicalize. And the other thing about it is that it's not an issue. So when I started trying to find primary data about 1985, I could only find it in the Sydney papers. There's no mention of housing. There's a little bit in Perth, but it's all Sydney. So it's a mistake. Nobody knows. Nobody means for this to happen. Even Howard. People blame Howard for. But you should read. You should read the book. It's all in the book. People blame Howard for his capital gains tax, and yeah, he's to blame. He's accountable for it. I don't think he didn't intend to set off a housing crisis. And when he got one, he didn't really understand it. And the way that I argue that he doesn't understand it is his curious response. Nobody ever complained to me about house prices rising, et cetera, et cetera. That's strange. It's a strange reply. He didn't say, oh, it's obviously a supply issue like they would now. He denies it. He tries to deny it's happening. He says nobody ever complains, nobody ever complains. But people ring up and complain all the time on Talkback Radio. You read the transcripts and there's all these complaints. Howard, you're being terribly responsible. And he quibbles. He doesn't understand the consequences of the capital gains tax, in my view, because he's not interested in housing. Housing. He doesn't want to stimulate a housing boom. It's just that he gets one, and he doesn't. He loves the capital gains tax, and he loves business. And what he wanted was a boom of entrepreneurship in broader Australia, not in housing, but he wouldn't associate it with his capital gains tax. And what he's saying is not why would anyone complain? Not no one is ever. It's like, well, why would you complain? I mean, your house is going up. Isn't that good? Aren't we victims of our own success? He doesn't understand the consequences. No one really does. I don't think. But can I just regress and explain, because I think this is the key, why carry trades are sort of things to be concerned about, particularly in real estate. So if we could let's go back to the ancient world, to the world of ancient Rome and Greece and so forth. So we can see what's going to happen in this carry trade. You can, to some extent, unpack what's happening in Australia if you think about the ancient grain carry trade. So what happens when the Greek Pectus arrives in Thebes and starts buying all the grain? I'm buying all the grain I can get. I'm going to carry it back to Rome. The Egyptians start to complain because they need to feed their families. So that puts pressure on the cost of grain in Egypt. So that's what's also happening in Australia. So the carry traders, the real estate carry traders, they put pressure on the cost of housing. They're bidding up house prices and carrying it to the rental market. So house price, so grain price, house price goes up. Now, if Pharaoh keeps a grain reserve, you might be okay, but he's got a trade surplus with Rome now. The grain carry trader could. That's sort of an interesting one. So it puts pressure on the cost of housing. Cost of grain in Egypt, and there's a potential. What would they say when we're running out of grain? This is the point that I was trying to make. The cost of grain's going up, Pharaoh. You've been terribly irresponsible in letting these carry traders take all our grain. Well, no one ever complained about their grain price. You can't say that, but you could say something like supply. Well, it's a supply problem. It's a supply problem. What we're going to do is we're going to deregulate the Nile. We're going to do some irrigation. We're going to increase supply. And this is the Albanese argument: increase supply. It's all a supply problem. But let's. I've probably gone a bit off track here, but let's. So, what do you do, Martin? This is my question. You're a Greek practice, Greek entrepreneur. Pharaoh increases the amount of grain. I've got a guaranteed sale price of 500 sesterces in Rome. Pharaoh is going to grow more grain. What do I do as the carry trader? What do I do? This is my question. This is to make sure you're not asleep, Mark. What do
Well,
I do?
so you are reliant on the continuing flow of trade, right?
Yes.
So whatever happens, you've got to keep the machine running. It seems to
Mm.
me, right? At any
Yeah.
cost,
Yes.
because as soon as it stops, you're stuffed.
That's right. Yeah. 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 But as the Greek, so this is supply is not the key.
Hmm.
So Albanese will tell you this. Supply is not the key. The carry trader, what you do is the Greek carry trader. If Pharaoh's going to grow more grain, I increase my leverage and I buy more and I carry it to Rome.
Yep.
You buy more. So supply is not the answer. Supply is irrelevant to the carry trade because the carry trade functions on carry, spread, leverage, and volatility. Supply has no relevance to carry. And in the book, I argue that any reform of the carry trade that doesn't affect carry, spread, leverage, or volatility, that's a simulation. It's a simulated reform. It's not going to work. You just buy more. I buy more. And as long as I've got that guaranteed sale price in Rome. Now, something that does concern me about the current debate, and maybe it's time to bring it in now. Any reform that doesn't touch carry, spread, leverage, and volatility won't work because it's got to affect the fundamentals of the carry trade. So if I'm a Greek practice and Pharaoh's growing more grain, I can carry more grain to Rome. I'm also going to go to Rome and whisper in Pharaoh's ear, and I'm going to say, "Look, I've got a whole lot of triremes arriving, and I've borrowed money from your treasury, and I can increase my leverage and make more money. But what I need more mouths in Rome. I need a growing population in Rome." So another symptom of the carry trade is migration. You need to make sure that the price of the sale price in Rome is as high. It continues to grow. So you want a growing population in Rome. So you lobby Caesar for an immigration program. So migration, what's fashionable now on talkback radio and so forth is, it's migration. Migration's a symptom of carry. It's not a cause. Uh, you so they it's a simple. This gets to a problem. The reason people think that reducing migration is the key to the key to solving the housing crisis because they're not. So what I've been doing is I've been thinking about how does this work? How does real estate sector work? That's very different to the way they think about how real estate works in the Treasury in Canberra. So they're economists. So they think about supply, demand, equilibrium, and incentives. If you reduce demand, you'll get a reduction in the price, and you'll get a different sort of equilibrium. That's how an economist thinks. But you can't really understand the Australian housing sector if you think in those sort of abstract terms. The question, I argue, is how does this work? And it works like a carry trade. So migration is a symptom. Now, if you say, we need to reduce migration and to reduce demand, yeah, maybe you'll get a reduction in short-term reduction. But then what will happen? So yeah, you'll get a reduction, and the house price will maybe the grain price will go down a bit, or the sale price will go down a bit, or whatever. But then, I'm a Greek Baptist. I've got a whole lot of triremes crossing the Mediterranean right now. I'm going to go and have a word to Caesar. What's all this talk about reducing migration? I borrowed money from your treasury. If you reduce my sale price, I go down, you go down. So I don't think that it would last. So even if people who are saying, "Oh, we need to reduce migration," even if they get their way. So just say you give them everything they want, and we reduce migration, straight to reduce the house price goes down. Banks, the property lobby, they're going to come for you. They're going to say, oh, all these people on talkback radio saying reduce them. And they're going to be very nasty about it. And from what I hear, they're already questioning the migration statistics that people use. They're unhappy about it already. It's not sustainable. Even a reduction in it'll come back, and it'll because it's a symptom. It's not a fundamental of the carry trade. You must affect these fundamentals, or it won't go away. You might get a temporary change. Now, I've got a bit off track there. I wasn't going to bring that in until later, but that's my take on it. You think migration will reduce the carry trade, the house price, but it won't, because you're thinking over here: supply, demand, incentive, equilibrium. Australian housing doesn't work. How does it work? It works like a carry trade. So what you need to do is attack the fundamentals. Otherwise, you might get a temporary, but they'll turn the taps back on. So I don't know. Does that make any sense? Or
No, it's very interesting. And it goes back to this question of what are symptoms and what are causes, right? And quite a
yes,
lot of the
yes,
policy responses and quite a lot of the debate in the media and on social media are about symptoms, right? What is
yes,
observable? Well, what is observable is that house prices
yeah,
continue to rise, that
mm,
the amount of bank lending continues to
yeah,
rise, that
yeah,
governments have pretty much promised that house prices are never going to fall, that
hmm
more and more of the social fabric of society relies on rentals from the private sector rather than the public sector, and
mm,
now they're actually
mm,
reinforcing it through the buy to rent tax breaks that are now putting in. But
mm.
all of those are fundamentally symptoms. It's not the root
Yes,
cause. So,
no, no,
what is the root cause and what is the machine and how should we think about the machine is precisely the right question to ask, which is why
mm.
I really find your approach, one, refreshing, but also quite worrying, because I've got two observations.
It's very
If you
disturbing.
if you go back in history, pretty
Mm.
much all carry trades ultimately collapse under their own weight.
Well, they do. Yeah.
So are we going to say the same about property? And the second is that it becomes self-fulfilling insofar that it's like the emperor has no clothes. You can't actually talk about the fundamental issue, because if you did, you would effectively create the collapse of the carry trade as well.
Well, that's right. That's right. That's when I first started down this. So I wrote this book at it used to be at the LSE. I went back as a visiting fellow and I wrote it there. And I'd wander around the halls, bending the ear of anybody who'd listened to me, very worried about this. Because, yeah, carry trades, and this is Kevin Coldiron and Tim Lee. Now, they're the experts. I'm not an expert on carry trades. I do, I talk about things like Marie Antionette and lumps of coal. Uh, I don't do carry trades. So you really need to talk to the experts about this. And this was one of the questions that I wanted to ask you. So part of Kevin Coldiron's argument and Tim Lee uh, is that carry trades create the conditions for their own collapse. What do they mean by that? What they mean is you get because so the carry so let's go back to Rome. So you get a capital appreciation in the targeted asset. Everybody starts to pile in on the trade. Everybody thinks, there's a lot of money in the grain trade. I'll get in on that too. And then all of a sudden, everybody's buying Egyptian grain. You carry it to Rome, so that they pile in. And so Kevin and Tim argue that this is kind of what's happening with the S&P right now. So, and particularly the Mag 7. So they're going up and up and up. Carry a capital appreciation of the sexiest stocks on the S&P. And it's when the capital appreciation and when there are more carry traders active in the sector. This is again, this is not my argument. This is theirs. Uh, the carry trade becomes a carry regime where it affects the behavior of the market. So the market becomes skewed towards the particular asset. And so, as you say, that if you criticize this, you'll be shouted down in the media. So, but with the migration guys, I actually think that the carry traders would want the people to attack migration because they know they can beat you on that. They know you're only attacking a symptom. And ultimately, if you get your way and house price goes down, they'll come back and they'll burn you. They know they can win that. They'll shoot you. It's like charging a machine gun nest. Talking about migration, in my view. But anyway, back to the capital appreciation. So the capital appreciation becomes so large that people start to notice it. Like it's like even now, is Google really worth? Is Alphabet worth that much? Is Tesla really? Is it really worth that much? And then people start to. So Australian housing. You look at the top 10 most unaffordable cities in the world, and Adelaide is in the top 10. Adelaide, really. They've got a good shot at the AFL Grand Final this year, but I wouldn't have thought they'd be, doing that well. So as more and more Australian cities get into the top, people see the capital appreciation and they think, that's strange. I remember last year in 2024, when I was writing the book, there was a guy, I can't remember his name, but he's a former banker. And he was saying that he thought it was strange that the Commonwealth Bank was in the top 10 market cap, and see, again, you know more about this than me. It has a very large mortgage book. I've heard that it's like 2/3 and getting larger. It's in the top 10, top 10 for market cap. Isn't that strange?
It has a PE in equivalent to Nvidia and players like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's weird.
Scale.
I mean, yeah. So there's 26 million people in Australia. Assume that 16 million of them. Assume there's 10 million kids or whatever, and 16 million of them use banking services. And I know Commonwealth's the biggest, so perhaps give them half of it. Give them 8 million people. So they service the needs of 8 million people, and their market cap is bigger than, I don't know. I mean, you're a finance guy. To me, that seems weird.
Yep.
So this is where my book, this is kind of where my book ends, and where guys like you and that fellow, I can't remember his name, but he had this paper called Throw Another Aussie on the Barbie that I thought
it's Matt Barry.
Matt Barry. Now, he's someone, my expertise ends. So when I'm talking about carry trades, I'm not an expert on carry trades. That's Kevin Coldine. That's Tim Lee. Guys like the guy you've mentioned, they need to take over the analysis. This is where I I'm going to go on and talk about lumps of coal. This is where you guys have to take over. Because so when my question would be, when does Jamie Dimon, if I'm told that all banks have foreign debt and they all have to roll over foreign debt, at what point does Jamie Dimon say, Commonwealth Bank wants to roll over its debt? Why is Adelaide in the top 5 and your mortgage book? When does it start to get noticed, Mark? When will it get noticed?
Well, I would argue that we firstly go through a period where it's too big to fail. In other words, the assumption is it will continue to roll on. In other words, it will continue to perpetuate, and people just assume it'll go on ad infinitum. Now, I would argue we're in the middle of that in the property sector at the moment, as we are in the AI boom, and as we probably are in the Bitcoin boom as well. But these are all examples of markets where the carry trade is getting stretched. And so the question becomes, what are the trigger or triggers that could create a disruption? And, you could talk about political interference, you could talk about wars and those sorts of things. But there's also this point about collapsing under its own weight. So at what point, and, think about the property market, at what point does the property market effectively collapse under its own weight. And if you look at the moment,
mm,
here we have interest rates coming down slightly. And so the
mm,
Reserve Bank is saying, well, that'll put a little bit of relief the way of Australians, and that'll help everybody to
mm,
get through. But at the moment, property prices are continuing to shoot higher, which means that
mm.
a new borrower has to borrow more to be able to get into the
Yes.
market, which means that their debt to
Mm-hmm.
income ratio is still going up despite interest rates are coming down.
Mm,
So
mm,
you can see this is going to continue to perpetuate into the future, at least for
mm-hmm.
now. And so there
Yeah.
are symptoms there of we are getting close to a threshold where things could potentially go a
Mm,
bit wobbly. But
mm,
because of the risks, what we're going to find then is that we're going to find the regulators and the government are going to try and find more ways to continue to keep this Ponzi going just a little more, a little more, a
mm,
little more, a
mm,
little more. And
mm,
if you listen to Mac Barry and he talks about the Project Zimbabwe theory, we're just getting to the point
mm,
where we're breaking the whole country, we're breaking the whole economy, and the narrowing of our economy in terms of its economic breadth is shrinking,
mm,
and it's all because what we're trying to do is to continue to keep this carrier trade running for a bit longer, right?
mm,
So the question actually does become: at what point does this weight become unsupportable into the future? Now, if you talk to people
mm.
like Harry Dent and some of those others, they will argue, and it's not a linear relationship, it's a logarithmic relationship. It gets more and more difficult to continue to push this up the hill, right? So, in other
Mm,
words, you
mm,
need to actually get more credit or more people coming in the country or whatever to continue to sustain the weight.
mm,
At what point is there going to be a tipping point? And that's my question. I don't know where that is, but I know that
mm.
we're closer to it than where we were a year ago or 2 years ago or 5 years ago.
Mm.
And I know that the
Yeah.
symptoms are there for people to see. Look at the debt to income
Mm,
ratios, look at the pressure on households. So there are
mm,
some people still benefiting from the carrier trade, but there are lots
mm.
not. So it
Yes.
becomes a set of political imperatives, but also a set of social and economic questions. And I'm worried about the societal impacts on all this. So what you're starting to
Yes.
see at the moment is the fragmentation of society. You've got a proportion of society who are enjoying this property boom and this carry trade,
Mm,
but you've got the renters
mm,
saying, I can't pay any more, but they're having to pay more. And you've got those
mm.
trying to get into the market and they can't. So household formation is now 10 years later than it used to be, simply because it's
Yes.
harder.
Yes.
Birth rates are dropping because people can't afford to have kids, which of course has its own consequences in terms of what the future
Mm,
shape of the economy is and the future shape of
mm,
society is. So there are
mm,
societal impacts and consequences of all of this. And that's where
mm,
I come back. I differ with you slightly. I think originally, you're right, there wasn't
mm.
an intent,
Yep.
but
Yep.
I believe that over time, because of the risks, if it falls apart, being so great, governments,
Mm,
the Reserve Bank, and other players are now deliberately trying to keep this thing just going a little bit further, a bit further. One more drink,
mm,
one more drink, one more drink,
mm,
because the
mm.
consequences if it went wrong would be, well, dramatic.
Yeah, very dramatic. I have a when you're a busy man, but when you get a chance, have a look at what I why I think it's a mistake. I don't really think that I think they know that they can't afford to let house prices fall because the banks are so heavily invested in it. But I don't think they understand the dynamics of carry.
Hmm.
One of the reasons I think this is because, so I said before, any reform that doesn't affect carry, spread, leverage, or volatility is a simulation. If you want to reform carry, you have to, or influence it, you have to affect one of those things. And as soon as you do, as soon as you take away spread, the carry trade unwinds. And when this carry trade unwinds, it's going to, Scott Morrison was right in the 2019 election when he said that there will be a catastrophe if this thing unwinds. He got that right.
So let's just talk about the political consequences, right? No,
Yeah.
nobody will get re-elected if they're responsible for allowing house prices to fall, right?
Mm,
It's quite clear. Both sides of politics have committed at various times to keeping home prices high. So there is a political issue here now, which is overlaid over the top. And, we have a government at the moment under Labour with a very large majority, and they're promising to sort of solve the housing crisis by more supply. But as we've said, supply is not the solution. It's a symptom of a problem, and it's not going to actually get us to
Yeah,
where we want to get to.
simulated reform.
We
Yeah,
have the
yeah.
Reserve Bank cutting interest rates a little bit. We have
Mm,
the regulators still worried about the risks of debt in the system, and particularly APRA
mm,
is talking about, well, we don't really want to, make it easier for banks to lend. But banks, of course, who want to lend ever more, say, no, 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 we're happy. We're happy to lend more. We want to extend credit. So guess what? The data that
mm,
came out just today showed that
mm,
credit has grown again. It's growing faster
mm,
than inflation. And of course, a lot of it's going
mm,
into the investment part of the market. So you can see
mm,
all of these symptoms and you can
mm,
see how this is currently structured, but nobody is actually prepared to talk about the emperor's got no clothes. Nobody is actually
mm,
questioning the fundamentals here, other than, as you say, unless you actually influence the carry trade, you're never going to
mm,
solve the problem. And none of the policies are
mm.
actually pointing in that direction.
No, no. Now, this is what you say is correct. This is where I come back into the room and I start to remember it's probably a good place to, because I started off early talking about lumps of coal and Marie Antionette, Great Britain. Um, so, this is a temptation in Australia. So, what you mentioned there, this is where my expertise, this is what the book is about. Why does policy change? So you said nobody ever got elected in Australia for letting house prices fall. So that's kind of that's a theory of policy change you've just announced. That if house prices fall, you won't get elected. That's a theory of policy change. But you can't explain Brexit with that. And if it's going to be a good description of policy change, you've got to be able to use it to describe all these different instances. So this is kind of my contribution to the debate. So policy changes when you change the meaning and identity of the objectives of a policy and its principal objects. And policy can change. So I'm sure, all those, if you and I were French citizens standing in 1793 in the Plus Stella Revolution or whatever it was, and we see Marie Antoinette get her head cut off, I would turn to you and I'd say, Martin, I never would have thought that would have happened. I would have thought that had happened. So policy can change. And it changes when Marie Antoinette changes from being Queen of France, enemy of the revolution, threat to public safety. Guillotine. So do see what I've just done?
Yeah.
I've changed the meaning and identity of these tax policies. It's very mischievous of me, I admit. Uh, it's a carry trade. It's not a tax. It's not an incentive to all these other grain carry, all these other things, all these other carry trades actually do something. Grain carry does provide sustenance for a growing population in Rome. The New York markets did need cotton. Yen carry, that remains to be seen. I don't know how much that does. But Australian real estate carry does nothing. All it does is bid up the cost of housing. Everybody piles in on it. And remind me to get back to that statement. That's something that I do want to get out. That I think the journalist out of the housing minister, who managed to get the housing minister to admit that it's our policy that house prices will rise, that person deserves an award, in my view. Now, change in the meaning and identity of things. So I have changed the identity of this. It is not an incentive to boost supply in housing and make rental accommodation available. No, it's not. It's a carry trade. I've changed its identity. Now, watch me change the identity of. So, how does policy change? We change the meaning and identity of the policy. So, you might notice on my running sheet here, I said in Australia there are no property investors. There are no property investors in Australia. Why? And you probably thought I was crazy. Why is he saying that? Well, it's a carry trade. It's impossible that there would be property investors in Australia. there are only carry traders. These are real estate carry traders. They're not property investors. The way that we make them property investors, and Australia needs property investors. Property investors are very useful. They can efficiently allocate capital to the housing sector, provide needed rental accommodation. We need them. Trouble is, we don't have them. We have real estate carry traders, and carry trades produce a capital appreciation in a targeted asset. Carry trades allocate capital inefficiently and ineffectively. Carry trades expose the Commonwealth to risk of financial crisis, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Change their identity. There are no, watch me do it again. There are no investment properties in Australia. How can there be? There are no investors, so there can't be any investment properties. There are only carried assets, carried houses. Change the meaning and identity of the policy and its related objects, and you should get that's my model anyway. So why did Britain get out of the European Union? Because Britain used to. That's the same argument. It's the meaning and identity of Britain changed. I argue in that book that British politicians actually forgot how to continue to assign meaning to Britain as a member of the European Union. Now, I'll do a shameless piece of self-promotion. So I encourage people to go to Google Star Trek and Brexit. And that it's a blog I wrote at the LSE about how British politicians forgot how to argue for the identity of Britain as a member of the European Union. That's why they left. That meaning and identity broke down, and another one came and replaced it. So the policy consequences of what I'm telling you is that we haven't been analysing it. One more thing I want to do. This I thought that was shocking when I heard the minister say, I can't remember her name, on the television or on the radio. It's our policy that that house prices will rise. So what she's saying there, it's part of carry. She's reinforced that carry trades are short volatility. Her message to you is, we will absorb your volatility. Our policy is that prices will rise. It's like saying to the Greek Pectus, it's Caesar's policy that the Mediterranean will remain free of pirates. The carry trade can keep going. That's what she's saying. Now, yeah, and you can see why it's going to, the carry trade is going to build an appreciation of the asset. So Australia's going to have the Spring Carnival soon, the horse races. Now, what would happen if the head of the VRC got up and said, the policy of the VRC that number 5 will win and will give you 3-1 odds? Everyone's going to put their money on it. You'd be mad not to. They're going to absorb my volatility. I'm going to put everything I've got on number 5. That's what she's. This is why I don't think it's deliberate. I think they know that they can't let house prices fall. But I don't think they understand the mechanics of carry. Even so, the reason I also think that is because so the guys, the experts, and I'm not an expert on carry. I talk about lumps of coal and Marie Antionette. That's my specialty. You need to talk to. This is someone you really should talk. You should get on the phone and call Kevin Coldine and Tim Lee. I haven't sent them a copy of the book yet. They know that it exists, but they've got bigger fish to fry. They're worried about the yen carry trade and its effect on the S&P. But they can tell you about carry trades and what happens when it unwinds. And I think Kevin has some sort of a connection to New Zealand. I think his wife might be from New Zealand, so he is aware of the housing sector. When you start looking at it in these terms, it's very frightening. I, even writing this book, I was started to think, I'm a humanities graduate. Why aren't people? Why do I have to write this book? Why does someone else have to? Shouldn't someone in the business faculty be writing this in the business school, not me? I didn't think it would. Yeah. Anyway, it's a bit frightening. So yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's not something to really enjoy talking about. Um,
But
so
it's
anyway,
important. It's really really important, right? And you
yeah.
know, my take out on all of this, and it's something that I've been saying for quite some time, is the assumption that house prices go up is good is actually a fallacy, right? It's a
Mm,
fallacy because it's founded on precisely what you're talking about, right? It's
yeah.
illusory in a way. It's not actually
Yeah.
going to benefit society overall, and it's going to make it harder and harder. But until such time as we turn the model around and look at it differently, we are going to
Yeah.
continue to, just like the government, assume that house prices will continue to rise and that's good, etc., etc. And Claire O'Neill,
Yeah.
who of course made that statement,
Yes, that's it.
was
Yeah.
just before the election was trying to actually give people further comfort that they're not going to rock the boat, they're not going to see prices fall, and
Yeah.
of
We
course,
will absorb your volatility.
exactly.
The
So
pirate, no pirates on the Mediterranean.
exactly right, and that's really the point. But I want to remind you what we said earlier on. Ultimately, the carry trade becomes self-perpetuating to a point, but not infinitely. There is going to be a point
Yes.
when this is going to go whoops.
Yes.
Don't know when it's going to be. Don't know how it's
No.
going to, but when it does, it's going to be particularly nasty. And the bigger it, the higher it comes,
Yes.
the bigger the
Yes.
fall.
Yes. One of the things that made me soldier on and continue to write the book was I thought, um, when it does go off the rails, what will happen then is then there will be a rush, as there was in 1985, in a very small way. So there was only. It's quite interesting to read the papers from back in those days. So there is an unwind of a nascent carry trade in areas of Sydney where I like to think the property is most valuable. Um, so there was the most potential for a misprice around inner city Sydney. And what happens then is there is a rush to define the cause of the problem. People rush in. This is to blame. You are to blame. This is why it's happened. That's why it's happened. So this is the reason why I'm prepared to sort of go to the mat on saying it's a mistake. So one of the reasons that I wrote the book was we have to understand the most crucial thing that we can do is, you know, in might be a distant event. I don't know when it's going to happen. I'm not an expert on carry, but we need to know who is to blame. We need to know why it happened and who is to blame. And that's going to be crucial because there are going to be interests that will rush in and to say, no, 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 it was the people who argued for immigration, blah, blah, blah. It was the people who, and it'll get nasty. And we have to be able to define where things went wrong. Otherwise, we're lost. Um,
Yeah. Well,
yeah. So that's
I think that's a really good place to bring the conversation to a bit of a close.
yes,
Just to
yes,
say, here is the book. It's got an amazingly long title, which is
oh yeah,
Radicalized Real Estate Agents and the Rise and Resilience of the Australian Policy for Real Estate Carry. And it's available now.
yeah. It's an academic book, so you really only get it in academic libraries.
Yeah. Well,
Although it's written for general readers, I've
yeah.
written it. I've tried to make it as clear as I can, but you
Excellent.
have trouble sleeping, pick it up. Yeah.
Well, look, John, I've really enjoyed the conversation, and we've
Yeah,
gone
yeah. Nice to chat, Don.
wide and deep. But I think there were some really, really important messages here. And look,
Yeah.
what I try to do on the channel here is to raise issues and get people to question and think differently. And I think you've done that very
Mm,
successfully today in terms of helping
mm,
people possibly to think differently about the property story. And again,
mm.
remember the symptoms and causes may be different
Yes.
from the ones that you actually think they might be. And if they are different, there are profound
Mm.
consequences.
Yeah, yeah, no worries. Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, and thanks for enduring because I go on and on. People usually walk away I start talking.
Well,
So,
I think that you will find there'll be a number of people who will have appreciated your candor
yeah.
and also your sense of humor. John, thank you very much. And maybe we should
All right,
catch up
no
again
worries.
down the track and have
Yeah,
another
yeah, yeah.
debate about
Let's
some
do.
of the more philosophical stuff, because I think there's a really
Yes,
interesting
yes.
question here about
Yeah,
how reality works.
yeah. Check out my Star Trek article. Yeah,
I'll put the link below. Thank you, John. Take care. Bye
no
bye.
worries. Thanks very much. Bye bye.